Because I have commitment issues in choosing what anime to watch, I decided to once again start watching a new sports anime in the spring 2022 season because sports anime is the only genre I'm comfortable with committing to without losing any energy or regretting my life choices. And since there are a lot of less requirements for me to be in the mood to watch sports anime, I decided to watch all the ones that came up on a specific anime watching website I cannot name here on YouTube. Here are my thoughts on the first 3 episodes of these shows. First off, we have Hunja no Fanfare, or Fanfare of Adolescence. The protagonist is an idol who holds a press conference to publicly announce he's quitting his job as an idol to pursue being a jockey at a specialized jockey school. A jockey is a person who rides a horse in horse racing, which is a sport. The secondary main character, who is a sort of foil to the lead, is this farmer-esque boy who is actually a boy who enjoys fishing on the island he's from, but I assumed he was a farmer just because he had a sun hat and seemed to enjoy exploring the outdoors. There is a whole other cast of other students who are side characters, but the main focus seems to be on the protagonist named Adimura Yu, and occasionally adding or asking for the farmer boy's opinions or thoughts on things. And farmer boy's name, even though he's technically not a farmer, I just call him farmer boy for short, his name is Kazunami Shun. In the first episode, a few horses get loose due to a nearby construction accident. The horses get scared and run off because of the noises from the accident. The kids gathering for their first introduction at the school decide to split up and search for the horse. While this is all happening, we keep getting cuts to Farmer Boy being mysteriously shown. We haven't seen his face yet, we don't really know who he is, and basically taking his time enjoying the scenery while he's trying to find the school. The protagonist T-poses in front of a running horse because he feels insecure over the fact he's an idol around more experienced jockeys, and he's also a dumbass because why would T-posing stop a horse running at full speed towards you? Farmer Boy jumps to push the protagonist away from the oncoming horse so he doesn't die immediately upon impact, which allows a meet-cute to happen between them. The first episode was an interesting ride, pun intended, but left me disappointed when the guy who pulled these ridiculous moves and did some next level horse riding maneuvers stated,
馬の上ってこんなに気持ちいいんだ。意外に乗れるもんだね。もしかして君乗ったことないだもん。
and I immediately felt done and wanted to click out of the show because it makes absolutely zero sense. Just let the guy grow up with horses or something. It's unrealistic for him to be this natural at horse riding with a prior experience. The second episode had a 1-month time skip that felt really awkward and made me super uncomfortable throughout the entire episode. It didn't help that there was this woman filming our main protagonist and making him generally feel incredibly uncomfortable, which has me questioning why she's allowed to film him. From my understanding, you need permission from the person to film them, or in the case of him, his parents, because he's a minor. So unless his parents are assholes and didn't ask for his opinion on being filmed, why is he being filmed if he's so uncomfortable with it? It just made me feel so bad for him the entire episode and generally dislike the woman who is filming these kids. The opening is catchy and looks good, except for the 3D horses, which still look super weird to me. The beat of the opening reminds me of any like super poppy J-pop or K-pop songs that are very upbeat and happy. Like the chorus has that boy group catchy ring to it. The third episode, there was an introduction of a foreign character who was like new to the cast, made this show infinitely more funny and spiced up the show. I still think we don't know the cast of characters well enough, but I hope the show's progression improves upon its character focus. So far in 3 episodes, it's sort of either like a 6 to 6.5 out of 10 for me, potentially a 7 out of 10 if we get more interesting stuff like in episode 3, but from the first 3 episodes, since the first episode ended weirdly due to the fact that Farmer Boy had no experience with horses, the second episode felt very uncomfortable. It just ended up losing a lot of the main premise interest, which was the whole idol becoming a jockey, but the time skip sort of made that interest fall flat because we didn't get an interesting adjustment period where we got to see him struggling to, you know, get used to being around horses or like being around all these students who might have more horse experience than him. We didn't really see that like awkward middle phase, which I think would have been more helpful, and it just felt super awkward time skip that was just placed in the second episode, which ruined things for me. But we'll see if the characters get any actual development if I end up continuing to watch it. I still don't know if I'm gonna continue watching the next few episodes. So far far it's in the 6 range. It's like a iffy bet to go on, so I wouldn't exactly completely recommend this show to watch. So next up is Love All Play. The first 3 episodes were very promising because the show seems to actually take the time for us to get to know each character, and I enjoy when the plot doesn't feel too rushed. I also thought the incorporation of a protagonist's home life made the first 2 episodes more realistic, especially the conversations he had with his older sister. Though some of them might have been written a bit weirdly, I really appreciate the effort to incorporate more family dynamics into sports anime stories, which often solely focus on the sport rather than what may be going on with the character's family. So far, the show feels very grounded in reality and revolves around a protagonist who is recruited because a coach saw his potential, and that coach happens to be from the same school of a badminton player he idolizes the most, who is a year older than the protagonist. When he finally meets his badminton idol, he's surprised that the guy has a not so good and intimidating attitude rather than what he has imagined him being as in his head. The ending animation really stuck out to me as being very creative, so I'm optimistic for this show having a promising future. By the 3rd episode, I think it's the show I'm least likely to drop out of a sports anime I started watching for this video. Similar to Ryman's Club, it's wholesome and feels like a casual watch to go to if you're bored and in dire need of a good sports anime to watch for this anime season. 3rd episode goes into reasons why people stay or choose to leave a club, and I respect the show for being realistic in terms of the fact that not everyone chooses to come back or stay, and it's okay if they don't come back as well because they can find interest elsewhere, or perhaps they don't want to join a club at all, and that's alright too. So I wish the character who chooses to not do clubs wasn't the stereotype of the guy chasing after girls in the class, and perhaps maybe he could have just been a guy who didn't have any club related school hobbies and just preferred chilling at home or something. But well, you can't have everything for anime. I'll just take the win when I could get one. For Love All Play, the portion I'm most excited about is learning more about the idol he sort of worshipped before attending the school. We don't really know much about him, but he's perceived as like the princely best player on the court, but he's actually very confrontational and super rude to people, so I'm excited to learn more about him and like what his story is. Like, we'll probably get a backstory at some point for him, and I'm just excited to see more for this show. If I had to give a rating out of 10 so far off of 3 episodes, I'd probably say like a high 7.5 to like an 8 out of 10 so far. Like, it's a pretty solid watch. If you're just looking for something casual to watch in terms of sports anime, this is, I think, a chill slice of life sports anime that might be the safest bet to watch out of all of these shows that I've watched so far for this season. Next on the list is Auishi, where similar to in Love All Play, which I just talked about, an important coach sees potential in the protagonist, but unlike in Love All Play where the coach already tries to offer him a scholarship, in this show, Auishi, he has to go through these very harsh tryouts and meet the cut for this super elite soccer school. The players here are the road work for Olympic level soccer players, basically who will represent Japan in the future. The stakes are very high in this series, which helps increase the conflict in the show because the protagonist is at a seemingly high risk of losing it all. I'm gonna be honest, I've never seriously watched a soccer anime before, and it may have to do with the fact that soccer is an incredibly boring sport to watch because of how slow it is when you see it on TV, and I'm just generally sick of seeing soccer, living in an area that is very obsessed with soccer. So because of that, I generally have a hatred towards soccer, like, or a dislike. Maybe not hatred is too strong a word, a dislike towards soccer. The first episode provides a very strong characterization of our lead protagonist, Ao, which had me hyped for the second episode. The main character very accurately reminds me of how I felt about Hinata when I first watched Haikyuu, where the dedication of this small kid practically injects itself directly into your veins and leads straight to your heart. I feel like a lot of sports anime either rush through the introduction of the protagonist, or the determination of a character seems artificial or forced. Like they're following the sports anime formula, so that's why this character is so determined rather than actually feeling the character genuinely being determined. And this protagonist gets to the grittiness of that extreme drive to learn, which Hinata and other lovable sports anime characters had in previous series I've watched. I think having that grittiness makes this show have a bit of an edge over the other sports anime shows in this spring anime season of 2022. The second episode was also okay, but I am a bit worried that the sole female character of the series will fall into the sports anime formula of just being a background character and not really contributing to the plot. The reason I really loved Yachi and Kyoko in Haikyuu was because they felt like well-rounded characters with their own, you know, interests. And like in terms of Kyoko, she has her whole past and a number of sports she played. For Yachi, she had graphic design she was very interested in, and she supported the club through her poster designs, which provided enough money for them to literally go for like the main tournament they had to go to. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to like afford a bus. So Yachi contributed so much, and I'm hoping that this female character isn't solely just there as, you know, the background support, or like she doesn't get that much development. She's sort of just the sole female one character ratio must be required in every single sports anime. Like we have to just have only one female character for some reason instead of having more female characters. Like there could be more coaches that are women, or like generally more women involved in sports, but for some reason it's very rare to have a lot of female characters in sports anime. So I'm just hoping she isn't solely that cardboard cutout background female character delegated to solely background aspects of a show. Like I need her to be more involved. Other than that, in terms of like the sports anime plot, it seems like a solid shonen sports anime runner. I don't think it's at the level of, you know, like Haikyuu, Run Up a Win, or Skate Infinity War for me in terms of like my personal interest, but it could just be my bias against soccer because, as I said, I don't really like soccer. If you don't have a general dislike for soccer like I do, you'll probably enjoy this show far more than I do. I think it's mainly, in terms of watching sports anime, about personal preference and what type of sport you don't mind watching. And personally, soccer isn't very high on that list. If I had to give it a rating right now, I would a bit lower than Love All Play. Like I wouldn't be giving it a 7.5. I'd be giving it like a 7, like a high 6.8 or something like that so far. It's just okay. It's not like amazing, but it's a solid contender. And lastly is Birdie Wing Golf Girls Story, which I was super excited about because I haven't really watched a girls sports anime before, but without like a all-female cast or mainly female cast. So I was super excited to, you know, like fall into this, and I was hopeful that it would be, you know, a good show. And so far, like in episode 1, it was wholesome. It had very cool designs. It had an interesting setup. The story centers upon Eve, the protagonist, who is making money through bets by betting on her golf skills. So she'll challenge someone and she's able to win the money by beating these golfers that challenge her, because I guess she's widely renowned for being good at golf, and all these rich people are trying to challenge her and beat her at golf, but they keep failing, and that's how she makes her money. Eve lives with her found family, I believe, in this very cool bar place. I don't know, like it's a bar shop that her older sister owns, I believe, that isn't doing so well. They don't have that many customers, so she's trying to make money on her own. At the time when I first watched the episode, I assumed that Eve was an adult because she wasn't in school. Her design sort of looked like she was older, but as many people are aware, anime designs are very confusing in terms of age. So I just assumed she was like 19 or in her 20s, which I was excited about, but I later found out she's actually only 15 years old. So this is a situation where she is being forced into the adult position. So it's like the adultification of a child, in which she is the provider for her family because things aren't going so great for her sister's bar. And as a result, she's doing all these like odd jobs and trying to provide for the kids that they're taking care of. Or perhaps they are her sister's kids. They don't really specify, but the fact of the matter is she considers them all her family. So she's just trying to make enough money to support her family and basically have a livable wage. So she's doing that through her extreme golfing skills. When I say extreme golfing, I mean extreme golfing. This show sort of gave that bizarre energy that Skate to Infinity initially gave in the first episode. I watched Skate to Infinity, but it's a bit toned down version of Skate to Infinity. Like it's not as extreme as Skate to Infinity, because for me, skateboarding naturally has that adrenaline-like experience just from simply watching it. Even if you don't know anything about skateboarding, I feel like anyone who watches Skate to Infinity will get a taste of that sort of adrenaline feeling that you get when watching, you know, extreme skateboarding, or like if you watch a race car tournament or anything like that. Any sport or competition that involves something going fast, you're naturally going to have that adrenaline experience as a viewer. For this, because it's golf, I would say it doesn't really have that adrenaline level, but it has the bizarre factor in how odd and strange a situation is, and due to the odd premise of a show of her like being an extremely talented golfer that challenges rich people in bets in order to make money, like that's such an odd specific premise that it automatically catches your attention as a viewer. The interesting designs and the absurdity of the situation reminds me of Skate to Infinity. This is the first sports anime with women as the protagonist that I have so far seen, and it hasn't hypersexualized a woman and seems to genuinely be about the competitive dynamic between these two women, which I'm excited to see. In episode 2, the show still seems wholesome, even if it's a bit unrealistic in that she's suddenly able to be a part of the world-class golfers competing. Crossing my fingers that the show isn't going to be like over-sexualizing them later down the line, but like so far I don't see any of that in this show. It's generally just about golfing. So far, the new girl Auishi just seems like an excitable competitive person who gets happy at the prospect of her opponents doing amazing shit, which I always love in sports anime characters because it's a very positive outlook on competing. It sort of reminds me of energy that Hinata gives when his opponents are really good. He just gets really excited about it, and that is what Auishi does. She just gets really excited whenever Eve is doing really good, and I just enjoy that competitive nature between them. We finally get a rivalry between two women in anime that is like super wholesome in a sports anime. I'm excited about it. Episode 3 goes into the more technical aspects of golfing and into Eve's very specific play style, explained by this extremely attractive woman in a suit who I think is very badass and I can't wait to know more about. I really appreciate the fashion in this show and how character styles differ depending on their personalities and their fashion tastes. For example, Eve originally had a more casual look with ripped jeans and short shorts, while the prodigy opponent Auishi kind of gives preppy pastel vibes, so I like the contrast and everyone's fashion relating also to their own personality. By the end of the 3rd episode, I'm excited that we've got a rivalry similar to other sports anime where the destined rivals are easily shippable. Basically, can we please have some woman-loving woman content in our sports anime as well? That would be great. Her found family's struggling and she has to like step it up. So she isn't in school, she's just trying to make money for her family, and now she's wrapped up into this golfing world because she meets Auishi, who challenges her and sparks his rival in her, and she literally follows her into the pro league in order to face Auishi like on the pro level. Like she's that desperate to meet her. I guess it's also a pro that she could probably like make money by doing this as well. She's doing it just to keep her promise of Auishi that they would meet competitively again and play a full golf match, and that is her motivation. But so far, wholesome content. I'm glad we're getting more girls sports anime. Like yes, we need more of that, and this seems to be a step hopefully in the right direction. That's all I really wanted to say about the spring 2022 sports anime series that are coming out, and let me know your thoughts if you have seen a few of these already on what you thought of the first few episodes of them, because I love hearing like differing opinions. If you guys had more positive ones on certain shows or like even more negative than what I thought the show was, please let me know in the comments, and I love reading your feedback and seeing what all you all think about these very different shows that give vastly different vibes to one another.